This time, I'll be introducing trigonometry. Before we begin, remember the Postsecond Theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now let's begin. The main topic that we want to talk about is sine, cosine, and tangent. This will be very useful to calculate angles and the lengths of a triangle. There will be three vocabularies to memorize: hypotenuse, adjacent, and opposite. They each represent the side of a triangle, and here is how you can identify them. Depending on which angle you're using, there will be different opposite and adjacent. First, opposite. To identify opposite, you just need to look for the side that is opposite to the angle, like this. Here is our angle, and the side that's directly opposite is our opposite. So 3 is our opposite. And the adjacent is just the side that is 90 degrees to the opposite, which will make 4 our adjacent. And the side that's left will be the hypotenuse. Now, this could change, so if we were to be using this angle instead, our opposite will be 4, and our adjacent will be 3.
After you get familiar with identifying opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, you can move on to sine, cosine, and tangent. As I've written down here, sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, meaning that we will use the length of opposite and the hypotenuse to get the angle. How we would do that is here. We have our theta, which is our unknown angle. We identify our opposite and our hypotenuse. We will write down sine. Now, we're trying to calculate an angle, so we should use the inverse. Usually in your calculator, you just have to press Shift Sine, and you will get that. Sine inverse opposite 3 over hypotenuse 5. And you should get the answer of 36.87. Let's try this with cosine. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine inverse 1. Adjacent, so 4 over hypotenuse 5 was still equal to 36.87. Now let's try the last one, tangent. Tangent inverse is equal to opposite over adjacent, 3 over 4, which was still equal to 36.87. Moving on, here is a typical question that you will see. The information that's given to you are an angle and one side of a triangle. What you will do here is simply write down which side are your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. So, opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. After you've written that down, you need to decide whether or not you want to use sine, tangent, or cosine. In this situation, we can use sine or tangent, but we can't use cosine because we don't have the adjacent nor the hypotenuse. So let's just use sine for this example. But unlike before, you're not trying to calculate an angle anymore, so you just write sine without the inverse. So you have sine 30 degrees, which is equal to opposite 4 over hypotenuse, which we don't know yet. Now if you use your algebra, you will get hypotenuse equals 4 divided by sine of 30 degrees. If you just punch that in your calculator, you should get 8, which will be our length of the hypotenuse. After we have gotten our hypotenuse and our opposite, we could just use the Postsecond Theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We have the hypotenuse, which is the c squared, so 8 squared is equal to 4 squared plus b squared. So we have 16 plus b squared equals 64. B squared equals 64 minus 16. B squared equals 48. B is equal to square root of 48. So that will be our adjacent.
Now, the last question before the video ends. Pause the video and see if you can solve it yourself first. So, here's how we solve it. We look at the big picture first. So we see that there is a 90-degree angle right here, and there's a 40-degree right here. So that means that this angle would be 50 degrees. And a triangle only has 180 degrees. minusing the 50 degree and minusing this 90 degree right here will leave us with 40 degree, meaning that this angle is 40 degree. And here we have another right angle making a 90 degree, so 90 minus 40 again is equal to 50 degree. So this here is 50 degree. So we know how to do this here now. We just learned this. So 50 degree, 40 in length, and an unknown value. So we have our opposite and we have our adjacent. So we need to use tangent. We're not trying to calculate angle, so we're just going to use tan without the inverse. So tan 50 degree is equals to opposite unknown over adjacent, which is 40. So to get x, we will do tan 50 degree times 40, and that will give us a result of 47.67, and that's our x.
Typically, there will be another set of questions like word problems on your test as well. I'll be covering that in another video. Thank you for watching.